they took me, they separated us from other people. They put Greta's head on the floor and close to an Israeli flag, were kicking her, calling her names. They put also my head on the floor. When Itamar Ben-Gvir came to try to give a lecture to all of our participants, some of our activists started telling that he was a war criminal, that we will see him in The Hague, and that he was a child killer. And then these people were also taken very violently as well, and people were abused in many ways, psychologically and physically at port. And when we were sent to the prison of Kitziot in the desert, the violations they got bigger.
Welcome back to Legitimate Targets, everybody. I hope you're all having a great day. We have got a very special guest joining us on today's episode, the man whose face and words have been seen by so many because he has been helping organize and lead the efforts with the various Gaza Freedom Flotillas that have attempted to sail to the beach fronts of Gaza, but have been stopped each time by the Israeli authorities. So without further ado, Thiago Ávila, thank you so much for joining me. As I understand, you've been on 3 of these flotillas now, all of them, and been stopped each time. You are from Brazil, and you are doing incredible work. So first of all, thank you. And how are you right now?
Thank you, Jackson. It's a pleasure being here in Legitimate Targets as well. And thank you for your work. You do a very important work to build a new society as well. I'm actually one of the organizers of the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, member of the steering committee, also a member of the steering committee of the Global Sumud Flotilla. The Freedom Flotilla have been attempting to break the siege for 17 years, this illegal siege over Gaza, the last 18 years right now. And we're trying to do our very best. I was part of the organizing of all the previous missions. I was on board 2 of these boats. After now 7 days of Israeli colonial prison in the desert, the prison of Kitziot, I'm finally home in Brazil at the Brazilian savannah with my 1 year and 10-month-old daughter called Teresa, and recharging for the next steps. We know that we need to continue going, and we are preparing for it.
I wish nothing but the best. Good health for your baby. As for the flotilla, I want to discuss some of the misconceptions and the propaganda that was put out there regarding the most recent effort, the Global Sumud Flotilla, because we saw a lot of reports. Obviously, you don't have good Wi-Fi when you're out there, but we saw a bunch of reports about incendiary devices, maybe, or drone attacks or chemical attacks. What was going on? Walk me through. What sort of attacks did you face? Was this by state authorities? Was it by individual Zionist actors that were crazy? What happened?
Yes, this flotilla was different from all the other missions because when we train our participants, Jackson, to go on a mission, we say that after we leave port, that we defeated the bureaucratic warfare, because they tried to stop us at port. They tried to create so much bureaucracy and stop us from sailing. But after we defeat this environment, we can go through 3 basic scenarios. We can either get to Gaza, that's what we're trying to do, and create this humanitarian corridor, but we can be also intercepted, like we were many times, or we can be attacked. This mission has brought so many complexities that we were attacked right on the very first week when we got to Tunis, after we faced storms and so many difficulties on our mission. To imagine that for 17 years we managed to take 37 boats to try to break the siege of Gaza. In this mission alone, we have more than all the other missions combined. So we would have, of course, a lot of problems, a lot of challenges to manage that, but we didn't expect to be attacked so soon. So when we were in Tunis, the very first night, a drone came, dropping an incendiary device on our boat, the lead boat of the flotilla, the family boat, and it was the fire was put out by the crew that was on board that time. And by a miracle, it didn't hit the fuel tank that was right beside where they threw the incendiary device. And the next day, they attacked another boat, the Alma boat, which was the second boat in the chain of command. So also, it was, but because the crew was ready, expecting an attack, because they were attacked the day before, they put out the fire very fast. So they were really expecting nobody got harmed on that. But it was very hard to see that we were attacked in Tunisian sovereign territory by a drone with incendiary devices that Israel never denied that it was them. So it's very rare for Israel to admit that they made an attack, but they usually denied when it was not them. So this time they didn't even care to deny the attack. But after that, after we left Tunisia, and we went into international waters. We got to Sicily, and we got more ships, over 20 new ships joining in Italy. And then we continued going to Greece. When we were between Sicily and Greece, we got attacked again. But this time was not one attack during the night, it was 14 attacks in the same night. So drones were coming and throwing explosive devices on the masts and on the sails of our small sailing boats, trying to disable them. And that was something very, very hard to deal with, because we were in the middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m. in the morning, and they were attacking the first, the second, the third. 14 attacks, 11 of them with explosives, 3 of them with chemical and skunk water and like a type of pepper spray into water, and weird chemicals that we could not identify all of them. So they attacked us in the middle of international waters when we're very far from many things. So it was very tough to deal. And when we got to Greek territorial waters, usually we don't enter territorial waters of any country not to be risking the bureaucratic warfare, because they can try to stop us. But that time we said we have to enter because we need to make it harder for Israel to attack us. And so we entered territorial waters, and not only they stopped the attack because they would be attacking into Greek territorial waters, but not only that, the attacks that we suffered and how vulnerable we were like sitting ducks going there. And that made the mobilization, especially by the Italian working class and the social movement, to pressure the government so much that the government said, I'm going to send a military frigate to accompany you. And then the Spanish government said the same thing, I'm going to send a military vessel to accompany you. And then the Turkish government said, I'm going to send drones and a military vessel to accompany you. That never happened before. In 17 years of the flotilla, we've been attacked before. But that type of solidarity that the people came to the streets and say, we're not going to let Israel kill all these people, promoted change into the governments that made them act, because they should have been doing that from day one. Actually, we should not even be on those boats, Jackson. They should be doing that themselves. The government should be stopping the genocide and taking the aid and stopping famine and starvation. Since they failed, we were doing that. But just because of public pressure, they were giving more support. And those vessels prevented us from being killed and attacked again until we got to what we call the orange line, 150 nautical miles. After that, we were all by ourselves again. And then we were once again attacked the night before interception. And then the interception came and stopped all of our 42 boats illegally in international waters, took us not to Gaza anymore, changed our course to go to Ashdod port in Israel. In Ashdod port in Israel, they took us to Kitzeot prison, far in the desert of Negev, and took us for 7 days of violations and a lot of war crimes and human rights violations that we're still sharing. But the worst thing is that they stopped our humanitarian corridor. Palestinian people are still starving in Gaza because despite the ceasefire, there's still not enough aid coming in. And the violations that the Palestinian people go through in prison are much worse than what we suffer. There are 11,000 Palestinians in those dungeons. 400 of them are children. And we don't do this thing for ourselves. We do for the Palestinian people. That's why we need to continue showing not what we go through, but what's going on in Gaza. That's the aim. That's what we need to stop. That's what justifies us keep on mobilizing.
If on one of these future flotillas, and I assume that you're going to be doing more because, as you correctly pointed out, the aid is still not getting in, despite this ceasefire, as they're calling it, where they're still bombing Gaza and killing Gazans. What would be the first thing that you would do or say to a Palestinian if you landed on the beach in Gaza?
The first thing I would say is it's a mixture of two sentiments that I always have. First, I would say I'm sorry. I'm sorry that the world didn't manage to stop this genocide, didn't manage to break completely the complicity of the governments. I'm sorry that the working class of the world has not stopped the genocidal machinery and all the arms factories and all the vessels that were carrying fuel and everything else, that the Palestinian people did not deserve to suffer any of that, and the Palestinian children did not deserve to suffer through famine, to have to learn what's an F-35 fighter jet, to have to learn what's the difference between a surveillance drone that will not kill her, but a quadcopter drone that will kill her. No children deserve to know these things. So I would say I'm sorry, but also I would say thank you, Jackson, because I would say thank you for saving the world. People ask if we are going to save Palestine. They are the ones saving everyone, teaching the world what imperialism is, teaching the world what is this racist and supremacist ideology called Zionism, teaching the world how to get back their humanity again. Because they are showing their sumud, with their resilience, that we have a historical task in our life, in our short and brief passage through this earth. We have a task to change a society that exploits, oppresses, and destroys nature. And we have the capacity to do that. So they are showing that we are stronger than empires. We are stronger than the whole industrial military complex, as long as we have the steadfastness, as long as we have the resilience, as long as we have the love within our communities, we have the capacity to face the biggest challenge of our generation. We have the capacity to win. The ceasefire is a victory of the Palestinian people and the working class of the world, combine a victory against Trump, not Trump's victory. Trump wanted the ethnic cleansing. 3 weeks before, he was talking about full ethnic cleansing to transfer people to South Sudan, to Somaliland, to Eritrea, after Egypt and Jordan failed in the negotiation. Netanyahu, don't even need to mention, he wants a complete ethnic cleansing. They were both defeated by the people and the social majorities of the world. And that's what's led and inspired by the Palestinian people. So I would say I'm sorry, but also I would say thank you for changing the history of humanity. Nothing will ever be the same after the Palestinian people taught us the way.
There was one very powerful group of working class people who collaborated in this effort to try and safeguard the passage of aid with the Global Sumud Flotilla, and that was the Italian dock workers. What did that mean to you guys, and do you hope to, I guess, utilize that partnership in the future to try and again break this siege and this, the cutting off of aid into Gaza?
Jackson, we always dreamed about the possibility that when we were going with the boats, the whole world would be mobilizing as well with the same discipline, the same dedication as the people who were on the boats. And that this time we can say that this happened. Right at the first days, we had dock workers in our boats, on our boats, organizers of the mobilization of dock workers on our boats. And they were saying, look, we're trying port by port. We're talking to everybody. People are willing to do, are willing to mobilize. And we were waiting for the day. So we were in the very first week and they said, they made a public statement. If you stop the flotilla, we're going to stop the ports. And we said, oh my God, we never had something so beautiful as that. And then they fulfilled their promises. Right way before we got to Gaza, they stopped the ports. And they said, after that, we're not just going to stop the ports of Italy, we're going to stop the ports of all the Mediterranean. And then they started mobilizing for that. And then not only that, the Italian people mobilized for a general strike for Gaza. You mean the world is such an unequal place and people have so many struggles within their own countries. It is so hard to mobilize, but to organize a general strike in a country for an international topic is something that was so out of our imagination before, that when they said, I said, this is too good to be true. And then they mobilized over 4 million people throughout Italy, or 1 million people just in Rome. And so it was something so beautiful to see that we said, we are really witnessing something different. When 1 million people goes in London in a demonstration about Palestine, solidarity with Gaza, we see that this demonstration is bigger than any other demonstration about any topic. And for over 25 years, since the millennium changed, there haven't been 1 million people in the streets of London about any other topic. So we see that the Palestinian struggle are showing the people not only that they need to fight a genocide, but they also are changing their own way of dealing with society. What they're fighting for themselves as well, for the right of free speech, for the right of the people really making the decision on their country, not only corporations, not only the corrupt system that we live in. So the beautiful thing is that Palestine gave us the lenses to see society as it really is, because I'm from Brazil, Jackson. I was educated to learn all the neighborhoods in New York through the sitcoms and know all the rivers in Europe and know all the industrial culture that showed us that was the model of civilization. That was the model of democracy, of freedom and liberty and success and abundance. And that's not at all what society is. They're not the model at all. They just shown their true colors, their true faces. And we see on the opposite. We see on the margins of this society people trying to live with a dignified life, in a free life, and in their ways, in their culture, within their societies. And they are showing a way to live in harmony with nature, to live in a just and fair world. And that's where we need to put our references on. So the Palestinian people right now are a bigger reference to me than any global north society, because they are showing a way to live through this corrupt and this collapsing society in a way that we can improve a way and live a happy and fulfilling life.
There's been many accounts shared from the activists who are on board the Global Sumud Flotilla ships as to the treatment, the torture that they endured once they were brought into occupied Palestine. What can you say about what you witnessed? Were you able to witness any of the Palestinian prisoners there? And also, is it true? Because I was checking my phone, I was trying to text our mutual friend Mandela Mandela, grandson of Nelson Mandela. I was trying to text him, and it seemed to me as though the Black and African participants of the flotilla were held longer than everyone else by the Zionists. They were detained longer. So, what was going on?
Yeah. First of all, when we were about to be intercepted, we were 70 nautical miles from Gaza. They put their military blockade. And they contacted us through the radio. And I was the responsible to talk to them over the radio. And they said, you cannot pass because we have a naval blockade. And we say, this naval blockade is illegal. Just like the genocide that you're committing is illegal. We will not stop. We will continue to go our way because you're committing genocide and ethnic cleansing. We said everything we needed to say. And then they said, we're going to intercept you. And they did. Once they intercepted us, I was on the same boat as Mandela. We were on the Alma boat. That after the family boat was destroyed through the attacks and through mechanical problems, we changed the command boat to the Alma. And then we were there. And when we got intercepted, we still remained for 16 hours under their custody, being kidnapped and taken to Ashdod port in occupied Palestine. When we got to Ashdod port, it was way worse, because then we were not under the custody of the IOF anymore, the Israeli Navy. We got into the custody of the police, which is controlled by the Ministry of Interior, by Itamar Ben-Gvir. And Itamar Ben-Gvir wanted to pass a message when we got to Ashdod port. So they were extremely violent with everybody. They took Greta first, then they took me. They separated us from other people. They put Greta's head on the floor and close to the Israeli flag. Were kicking her, calling her names. They put also my head on the floor. When Itamar Ben-Gvir came to try to give a lecture to all of our participants, some of our activists started telling that he was a war criminal, that we will see him in The Hague, and that he was a child killer. And then these people were also taken very violently as well, and people were abused in many ways, psychologically and physically at port. And when we were sent to the prison of Kitziot in the desert. The violations they got bigger. So people who had no medicine, for example, diabetic patients, they would stay days without insulin, risking people's lives. Cardiac patients as well. We almost half of us, over 200 people, were doing hunger strikes at that moment to demand an immediate release, to denounce the genocide, to denounce the forced starvation in Gaza. But we also had to start a thirst strike, some of us, for them to deliver the medicine. And we had to do a full rebellion in prison for them to deliver the medicine of the people, because they were letting people get killed there. So they were offering food, and the water was from the tap, but they were denying the medicine of the people. And when people said, I need a doctor here, they said, there's no doctor for animals. So they were saying the worst things. They were intimidating people with shotguns, with lasers. They would bring the dogs inside the cells during the night to scare people, to put people into panic. They would refuse people to have any contact with the outside world. So it was very tough, even for the diplomatic envoys to access us, for the lawyers. They would put people through court hearings without lawyers as well, without any orientation. So they would try to force people to sign confessions of crime that they didn't commit, saying that people went on purpose to enter Israel illegally, when we never wanted. Our destination was Gaza, Palestinian territory. It was not their territory. So they did so many violations that, to be honest, Jackson, we try to avoid most of the time to talk about this, because it's nothing compared to what they do to Palestinians. When we hear the report from Sidet Eiman prison for the Palestinian doctor from Gaza, for example, then we see what is really torture to really break and destroy a person. But what we've been through have been serious violation. And like what you said, and like Mandela said, they left on the day that we were leaving, the seventh day in prison, they left Mandela cells for the last. I was dragged way earlier because I was the organizer, and I said, I'll be the last one to leave, like on the last mission. And then they said, we don't care, we're gonna push you. And they had to drag me, and they dragged me, they put me on handcuffs, blocking my circulations for 6 hours on the road. So it's very, very tough. A lot of violations. But they left Mandela for the last. So we could say that well, of the people that left that day, he was the last person to be left. And also some global south countries, they also left less. So Brazil, Colombia, South Africa, Tunisia, Algeria, those were the last countries to leave. The Europeans, they have stronger diplomacy in Israel, so they left early. But the United States left the same day as we left. And different from us, the diplomacy of the United States simply didn't care about their participants. So the Trump's administration didn't care at all. It's a duty of the diplomatic service to take care of their citizens abroad. So we always see in the movies that the United States doing all the efforts for their citizens. That was not true at all. They simply abandoned their participants and went out of obligation at the day of the release only.
It's incredible. I don't have words for it, but then again, we have to remember how they treat the Palestinians, and it's really becomes much more believable. But all this for delivering aid, right? It's crazy. In the future, because this ceasefire, I think we all know is, I mean, it's Trump's vanity project aimed at getting a Nobel Peace Prize. I don't think he really cares. I think he's very fearful of Israel and Netanyahu. And he's definitely not going to stop them from killing Gazans. Killed over 90, I think, since the ceasefire was supposed to have gone into effect. More airstrikes yesterday. Not allowing aid in today. What is going to be the future plan of action, or if you can say, if not, I hope for the best. But is there anything that you'd like to add as for what you have planned?
Yes, we definitely can say, Jackson, because we always said that our mission was not only the aid. And the aid is a very, very important part because the Palestinian people have been starved to death. But the Palestinian people, they should not need aid, should not need external help. And the reason why they need this external help is because they're living under occupation. They are living 8 decades of genocide and ethnic cleansing that is structured itself into that horrible apartheid colonial state, and which is led not by a religion, but by an ideology, this racist and supremacist ideology called Zionism. So until we finish occupation, until we finish this horrific apartheid colonial state, and we decolonize that region, international solidarity will still be necessary. Like the apartheid in South Africa, like other hateful ideologies of other generations, it's the responsibility of the entire world to defeat it, not only of the indigenous people who are suffering from this violation the first hand. So we need to continue mobilizing. The flotilla will remain because the most obvious thing, Gaza is still under siege for 18 years by sea, by land, and by air. So we not only need to continue with our missions, but we have the responsibility to escalate to bigger missions. So we did the biggest mission ever attempted, and now we need to do an even bigger one, and we will do it.
Well, I hope for the best. I'm very inspired by all of your guys' work, and I speak for many, obviously, when I say that, because it's incredible. It's very creative and imaginative, and I think you brought that up earlier. We need to imagine new ways to pressure the existing imperialist order, and we can't allow ourselves to be constrained by what they tell us is acceptable and unacceptable forms of protest. So thank you so much for all of your work. And I do have one clarifying question. Is there an official Twitter account for people to follow to stay up to date? Because I think there were some fake Twitter accounts, some fake social media accounts for the Sumud Flotilla. So where should people stay up to date besides your Twitter, which we'll have linked in the description?
Thank you so much for bringing this up, Jackson. We have our social media. We have all the social medias, all the profiles. I don't know the exact name of each of them, but if you go to Instagram, you'll see Global Sumud Flotilla, and there we have the tags of all the other social media. We had this problem of fake accounts as well, which is actually very dangerous because can spread misinformation in decisive moments. For example, in moments of interception that can deal with physical integrity of participants and stuff. So please follow the official page as well, and all of us, people who have been doing solidarity work not for 2 years but throughout their whole lives. So yes, it's very important that we are together. Right now, we are at the task of bringing a lot more sectors together with this. Now that people have seen that it's a powerful method, it's not the only one. The flotilla mission does not has any effect if it's not accompanied by this mobilization in the streets, about people promoting free information like you're doing, people pressuring the governments to break their complicity, people doing boycotts, the brave people disrupting the armed factories. It's all combined in this global uprising. So follow our social media, but most of all, join us everywhere.
Very good. Thank you, Thiago Ávila. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, my brother. We are together.